Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. You're welcome to the class Social Psychology and Advanced Public Relations. We'll be discussing on a lot of things today. Well, let's quickly brush our minds on what we treated last week. We treated the topic impression. How do you impress people? We've talked about uh, social cognition. We've talked about interpersonal phenomena. We've explained what social psychology is, which is the study of how people think, how people feel, how people behave, which can be influenced by the society. We've talked about interaction or interpersonal attraction, how people attract to each other in terms of first impression. We've explained first and lasting impression, where we talk about the age, the race, the culture, the language, gender, and the rest. We'll also talk about implicit personality theories. We'll talk about the theories of impression formation. Today, we'll be looking at self-monitoring and impression management. We'll be talking about self-monitoring and impression management. Now, self-monitoring is a personal trait that captures differences in the extent to which people control their image. That's the image they present to others in social situations, how they want others to see them in the society, within their social class. High self-monitors are motivated and skilled at altering their behaviors to influence the impressions others have of them. Low self-monitor tend to focus on remaining true to their inner attitudes by presenting a relatively consistent image of themselves to others regardless of the situation. We have two sets of people. We have the high monitors, we have the low self-monitor. The high self-monitor people, they are always motivated and they are skilled at altering. They tend to change their behavior to influence the impression they made on others. While the low self-monitor tend to focus on remaining true to their inner attitude by presenting a relatively consistent image of themselves to others regardless of the situation. Let's look at self-monitoring background and history. The theory of self-monitoring was introduced by Mark Snyder in 1974 at a time when personality and social psychologists were grappling with two fundamental debates. First, the impact of personality traits versus the situation on behavior was a source of contention between personality and social psychologists. Secondly, the disconnection between inner attitude and external behavior was also perplexing researchers at that time. Self-monitoring offered the partial resolution to this debate by introducing an individual differences or different variable that addressed both sides of the debate. Self-monitoring emphasized the power of the situation on high self-monitors behavior and the power of personality traits on low self-monitors. Moreover, self-monitoring partially addressed the attitude behavior consistency because such consistency could be expected among low but not high self-monitors. Well, I explained self-monitored as the way people present themselves within their class, within their social class, the way people want people, the way one an individual want others to see themselves, like the high self-monitored behavior. They tend to behave above their level. They tend to lie about their personality. They tend to present a type of personality that can be acceptable, that they tend to place themselves higher than what they are. While the low self-monitored behavior, they are always true to themselves, regardless of the place they are or the people they are with. Self-monitoring importance and implications. Self-monitoring is important for understanding how people behave in social situations. Research has examined the influence of self-monitoring in many ways, including but not limited to how people behave over time, express their attitude, perceive social cues and others' behaviors, approach interpersonal relationships, behave non-verbally, and make consumer judgments. Now, self-monitoring is very, very important because it looks at how people behave in social situations, how people behave outside the comfort of their own homes. And research has explained the influence of self-monitoring in many ways because it includes expression of attitude and behaviors, approach to interpersonal relationship, behave non-verbally, and make consumer judgment. Because you can easily judge someone at first sight. That's first impression. When you see a person, the way the person presents himself can create a way of you judging that person either rightly or wrongly. Let's come to impression management. Impression management is the effort to control or influence other people's perceptions, like the high self-monitored people behaviors. They like to control the way people they behave outside, and they also control the way people see them. Impression management is the effort to control or influence other people's perception about an individual. No, I want to be seen as a rich person. I dress the way I dress, the cars I move around, the things I put on, the way I construct my English, the way I speak outside. All this can influence the way people and the perception of people towards an individual. So impression management controls or influence other people's perception. This could be their perception of a certain person, which is including you, a material possession or an event. The theory goes on to explain that we try to make the perception consistent with our goals. For example, a girl who only shares good things about her boyfriend to her parents may be trying to present him as a good catch so that they can stay together. Now, if a woman spends hours thinking about the right outfit to wear to a party, she may be trying to present herself as beautiful and stylish while looking for a date. Of course, many of us can identify with the desire and resulting action to be seen a certain way or cause someone or something we care about to be seen a certain way. Sometimes it's conscious and sometimes it isn't, but when we pay attention, we may find several perceptions we are striving to get from others. The most common type of impression management have to do with self-presentation, and in the business world, the presentation of merchandise. How often have you wondered what someone would think of you if you do this or that, or if you don't do it? We strive to have other view us positively because we tend to put emphasis on other views in ways that impact our self-esteem. As far as marketing goes, businessmen are going to present a product in the best light possible way. Their jobs relies on managing the impression of the audience in specific ways that boost revenue. Okay, let's look at impression management as defined by Dr. Rajesh Tiwari. Now, he explained that impression management is a process by which people control the impression others form of them. and plays an important role in interpersonal behavior. All kinds of organization consist of individuals with varieties of personal characteristics. Therefore, those are important to manage them effectively. Identifying the behavior manner of each of these personal characteristics, interaction among them, and interpersonal relationship are on the basis of the impression given and taken. When two individuals or parties meet, both form a judgment about each other. Impression management theories believe that it is a primary human motive, both inside and outside the organization, to avoid being evaluated negatively. Goffman initially started with the study of impression management by introducing a framework describing the way one presents them and how others might perceive that a presentation. The first party consciously chooses a behavior to present to the second party in anticipation of a desired result or effect. Assuming the second party responds in the way that the first party intended, the first party will continue to use the particular strategy. Now, Goffman explained that impression management believes that it is a primary human motive that two individuals or two parties, the moment they meet, they form a particular judgment about each other. And the way one presents, they also talk about a framework describing two parties. The first party choose a behavior to present to the second party in anticipation of a result. Now, assuming the other party respond in the way that the first party intended, the party will continue to use this particular strategy, which is true. So every individual has a primary human motive. That is, they try to form an impression about others. The moment they meet, they form an impression. Most people are concerned with making good first impression on others because they believe that these impressions will exert lasting effect. Hence, during social interaction, individuals attempt to control their image both consciously and unconsciously. This is called impression management. It is a behavior used to create and maintain desired images of the self. In other words, impression management is a process through which individuals attempt to influence the impression others people form of them. Now, the desire to make a favorable impression on others is a strong one. So most of us do our best to look good to others when we meet them for the first time. Persons who perform impression management successfully do often gain important advantages in many ways. Individuals use different techniques for boosting their image, which generally fall into two categories: effort increase their appeals to others, and efforts to make the target person feel good in various ways. Self-enhancement. Okay. Self-enhancement make use of specific strategies to bend the truth and enhance one's own appeal, whereas in other enhancement tactics use play an important role in generating liking for the person responsible for impression. In a general note, self-impression, it can be can come out, the results can be positive and it can be negative, because the way people see you can either give a positive impression about you to them or a negative impression. So impression formation is an important universal trend for all individuals, and managing this impression affects one's life deeply. There is a need for those for organizational settings to understand the basic elements or construct involved in impression management. Let's move on. So impression management helps people to manage their impression, or it talks is all about how people manage their impression and the way other view or perceive their perception about them. Let's look at the major components of impression management. There are 5 components of impression management. 1. How do we do this and why? That is, various types of identities we all enact to some extent in our lives. We put on different identity in our lives, dependent on how you can help or recall all this. Now, let's look at application to consumer behavior. The 5 major components, how do we do this and why? Hibernated identity to be a global nomad. Okay, let's go to application to consumer behavior. Now, the study of consumer behavior is one area to which researchers have applied knowledge of self-monitoring in line with their propensity towards managing outward appearance. High self-monitors, that's high self-monitor behavior, tend to prefer advertisements that appeal to a particular image and will select products that will help them convey an image in a certain way. While low self-monitors behaviors prefer advertisements that focus on a product's quality and are less swayed by attractive packaging than the eye self-monitored. Now, the eye self-monitored people always preferred advertisements that appeal to a particular image. They tend to form an image that is attractive to people, while low self prefers advertisements that focus on product quality and they are less attractive packaging than that of high self-monitored. Let's look at self-disclosure definition. It refers to the process of revealing personal, intimate information about oneself to others. Through self-disclosure, two individuals get to know one another. Self-disclosure is considered a key aspect of developing closeness and intimacy with others, including friends, romantic partners, and family members. However, self-disclosure also functions as a way for people to express their feelings about situation, to give others their thoughts and opinion about topic, to elicit reassurance about their feelings or to give advice. Self-disclosure has to do with personal revealing of oneself personally to the other, disclosing personal details of oneself to the other. Let's look at the importance of self-disclosure. It varies by the level of intimacy. For example, information can range from being relatively superficial, such as disclosing where you are from, and what your favorite flavor of ice cream is, to being more private, such as revealing that your parents are going through a divorce or that you once cheated on your boyfriend or girlfriend. Self-disclosure also varies in how many different topics are disclosed. When individuals disclose private information, their disclosure is high in depth. When individuals disclose a wide range of topics about themselves, their disclosure is high in breadth. Most relationships begin with the exchange of superficial information. Self-disclosure varies, as it has been explained here. It depends on the level of intimacy. A friend, you can easily tell a friend uh, some light secret about yourself, but you can tell your spouse a lot of things about your family, about yourselves, and all that. So it all depends on the level of intimacy. When individuals disclose a wide range of topics about themselves, their disclosure is high in breadth. So most relationships begin with the exchange of superficial information. which gradually turn into more meaningful disclosure when the superficial conversation is rewarding. That is, people are likely to move the conversation to a deeper level by increasing both of their sensibility to be high self-monitored behavior less consistently across different situations than the low self-monitored behavior. Hence, relatively weaker correspondence being their attitude and behavior. In addition to this, high self-monitored behavior tend to tailor the attitude they express to correspond with those of their audience and to appreciate the effect of the social context on other behaviors. Self-monitoring also influences the types of situation people select for themselves. Like the high self-monitored prefer to engage in situations that are clearly defined to facilitate their behavior adaptation, whereas low self-monitored select situations that converge with their personal disposition and dispositions. So let's look at interpersonal relationship. Interpersonal relationship. The social worlds of high and low self-monitored or monitors are characterized distinctly. The social groups of high self-monitored tend to differ depending on the context. They have different friends in different situations. Conversely, low self-monitors tend to have a stable group of friends who are similar to them in a global way. Very, very important. While the high self-monitored also have their various friends in different situations, as in they have different friends in different situations. They have friends in different situations, while low self-monitors have a stable friend. Commitment and relationship longevity differs between high and low self-monitors in a way that corresponds to the contextually driven versus constant approaches to their social network. Both friendships and romantic relationships tend to be approached with greater sense of commitment and intimacy among low self-monitored relative to high self-monitors. Like the high self-monitors tend to report having more casual friendships and sexual partners, having greater quantities of shorter romantic time, and relying on outward appearance when judging others to a greater degree than the low self-monitor. The low self-monitor, they have stable relationship, they have stable partners, they have stable friendship. While the high self-monitors have casual friendships, they have different sexual partners, they have different greater quantities of shorter and romantic and all that. Let's move to non-verbal cues. The tendency to use non-verbal displays of behavior strategically is also influenced by self-monitoring at both conscious and unconscious level, stemming from differences in attempt to control images presented to others. High self-monitors are better able to expressively convey internal states and to actively conceal socially inappropriate emotional display than the low self-monitored. That is, the low self-monitored are always emotionally carried away, while the high self-monitor, they are better in keeping their emotion, the way they display, they try to keep their emotion because of the way they carry themselves. They carry themselves so high, so they wouldn't want people to see that they are emotionally backward or they can easily fall. In general, people with non-consciously mimic or mimic the non-verbal behavior of others. Mimicry is a strategy used non-consciously to achieve social connection. The mimicry of high self-monitored is context-dependent. Why that they mimic especially when the other person is affiliated with them in some ways, has power over them in an upcoming task or in a member of a peer group instead of a more senior or junior group. The process of regulating behavior to accord with social cues may operate outside of conscious awareness among high self-monitors, while low self-monitors do not show this sensitivity to affiliation with others when non-consciously mimicking behaviors. Now, the high self-monitored people can easily use mimicry strategy to achieve a social connection. You understand? They try to lie in order to gain access to high class people, high profile level people. They tend to put on an impression about themselves that they can fit in such class. In addition, a person who reciprocates an intimate self-disclosure is one more than a person who reciprocates an intimate disclosure with a superficial one. When a person reciprocates an intimate disclosure with superficial disclosure, it is a signal that they do not want to get to know the other person and the conversation is not as rewarding. Typically, however, superficial information is disclosed to strangers and more intimate information is disclosed to close others. Revealing highly personal information to a stranger is perceived as inappropriate. For example, it is improper for someone you barely know to come up to you and reveal the intimate details of his or her sex life. Yet, in a close relationship such as a revelation could strengthen the relationship and make two people even closer. A person who reveals too much information earlier on is perceived by the other as unbalanced or imbalanced. Self-disclosure fosters love as well as liking. Couples who engage in more extensive and intimate self-disclosure to one another tend to have longer, more satisfying relationships. This is because disclosing personal information about yourself is one way to get your needs met, and having your needs met increases feelings of love and affection, companionship, and a sense of belonging. Partners believe that their relationship contains a high level of intimacy when they can express their thoughts, opinions, and feelings to their partners, and feel their partners are able to express themselves as well. This is why many researchers believe that expressing intimacy through self-disclosure may be the most important factor that determines the health of a relationship. Let's on that note, let me share this slide. Okay, let's go back. Okay, let's move on to gender and individual differences in self-disclosure. We expect women to be more expressive than men. When a woman is not expressive, others perceive her as maladjusted. Likewise, when men are expected to be inexpressive, he is perceived as unstable. And in fact, women tend to disclose more than men do in general. However, although women disclose more to their female friends and to their romantic partners than men do, they do not disclose more to their male friends anymore than men do. Furthermore, women tend to elicit self-disclosure from others, even from those who do not usually disclose very much about themselves, which is true. One reason for this is that women tend to be responsive listeners, which in turn promotes further disclosure by the speaker. Traditional gender roles are changing, however, men are becoming more expressive in the contents of their close relationship and view disclosure as an important part of the relationship. Therefore, couples nowadays are exhibiting patterns of full and equal self-disclosure, which has produced relationships that foster mutual respect and trust. Now, nowadays, couples disclose more to each other because they believe that it helps to build the relationship, a relationship that both parties disclose their intimate um, personal information. It helps to build the relationship. But when at when an individual or a two-person are meeting for the first time and one tends to disclose more, the person is seen as unbalanced or unstable. That is not stable or balanced. How will you meet a stranger and you disclose almost everything about yourself? So relationships that contain a high level of self-disclosure have been found to be more intimate and more satisfying for both partners. Breadth and the depth of conversation when they are enjoying a conversation they are having. When a relationship is new, earlier conversations tend to involve self-disclosure reciprocity. That is, the two individuals will disclose, will talk about themselves during their conversation, not that just one of the person that will be discussing while the other one is listening. Both should discuss about themselves one after the other. Put in another way, new acquaintances, sorry, I have issue with Q and S, tend to match one another disclosures. When one partners open up and discloses, the other ends up disclosing as well, which is true. As one partner discloses increases in intimacy, so to so the other partner discloses. The more my partner talks about himself, the more I tend to have the will to discuss more about myself. That's how disclosure is, self-disclosure. Because self-disclosure is reciprocal. It both influences and is influenced by intimacy level between the two. Because every self-disclosure depends on the level of intimacy. You can't expect a first date that first date an individual will say more about a woman or a lady will say everything about himself. No, it's a gradual process. When the relationship keep on moving, you tend to disclose more, go deeper into self-disclosure. So that's for both ends. If you want to know or get to know someone, one strategy is to disclose personal information about yourself to the person you want to get to know. Most likely, this person will open up to you in turn. Over time and over the course of a number of conversations, a relationship becomes increasingly more intimate. The important factors determine whether an interaction will be intimate. First is the content of the individual disclosure. For example, the disclosure of personal desires, fantasies, anxieties, and emotion is more important for the development of intimacy than the disclosure of fact. Fact like my parents are divorced. This is because the disclosure of emotion provides an opportunity for the partner to validate and demonstrate that he or she cares for, support, and accepts the individual. The second is the partner's response to the disclosure. When the partner is responsive, feelings of closeness are increased and further communications is facilitated. And when a partner is not responsive, he or she is indicating a lack of interest in further conversation and intimacy is decreased. Thirdly, the individual's interpretation of and reaction of the partner's behavior determines the level of the intimacy. If the individual perceives that the partner is supportive and understanding, the conversation is likely to become more intimate because the individual is likely to disclose. again or prompt the partner to disclose. But if the individual perceives the partner as unsupportive or intrusive, the conversation is more likely to become intimate. The conversation is more likely to decrease. Thus, when disclosure is high, the partner is responsive, and the individual perceives the partner as caring, the conversation will most likely become more intimate over time. Okay, let's move on to the next chapter. We have theories of attribution. Theories of attribution. Attributions. Okay, because of my time. Okay, let us quickly look at theories of attribution. Attributions are inferences that people make about the causes of events and behaviors. They are what people discuss about the causes of an event and behaviors of people. People make attributions in order to understand their experiences. Attributions strongly influence the way people react with others. Attribution theory deals with how the social perceiver uses information to arrive at causal explanation for an event. It examines what information is gathered and how it is combined to form a causal judgment. Attribution theory is concerned with how and why ordinary people explain events as they do. Either believes that people are naive psychologists trying to make sense of the social world. People tend to see cause and effect relationships, even where there is none. Haider didn't so much develop a theory himself as emphasize certain things that others took up. But there are two main ideas that he put forward that became influential. The first one is internal attribution and external attribution. He explained that the process of assigning the cause of behavior to some internal characteristics rather than to outside forces. When we explain the behaviors of others, we look for enduring internal attributions such as personality trait. For example, we attribute the behavior of a person to their personality, motives, or beliefs, which is true. The internal attribution is the process of assigning the cause of behavior to some internal characteristics rather than to outside forces. You understand? We tend to explain the behavior of people for enduring internal attribution, such as personal traits. We attribute the behavior of a person to their personality, motives, or beliefs. It's just a way of seeing or trying to make sense of what people do. You understand? As an individual, you look at the behavior of people, maybe during a social gathering, to explain what the person is feeling at home. Oh, see the way he's so quiet today. What's happening? Likely he has problem with his husband. So it all depends. Now, external attribution is the process of assigning the cause of behavior to some situation or event outside a person's control, rather than to some internal characteristics. When we try to explain our own behavior, we tend to make external attribution such as situational or environmental behavior. Now, assignment. Assignment. I would like you to write on personal impression management. How do you manage your impression? You can go online, get information on personal impression management, write about it, write a questionnaire about it, something you can give to people, write about it, and forward it to my private mail. You have my mail, forward it to it. That's your assignment for the day. Personal impression management. Thank you for your time and you have a lovely evening.